PlayStation fanboys really want to go out on your shield, man. You got people like MBG out here telling y'all that the PlayStation 2 was a 60 FPS console. Do you understand how many games was made for this platform? Over 4,000 games. And yet you guys want to use a handful of titles to say that, look, the PlayStation 2 was a 60 FPS console, when a lot of these games are either low demanding or a racer or a fighting game. Like, what is the difference now? And the funny thing is, you guys want to bring up these few handful of titles, right? Look at this. 98% of the time, these games had issues. I know from my own personal gaming experience. You guys think that because, you see, this is why sometimes searching on the internet can be proven wrong, because you people didn't enjoy these consoles when they came out. I remember having issues with games like Armored Core, where the game having performance options and the game severely dipping. Where have you people came from? Y'all think because, I'm looking this up on Wikipedia, that means that I'm right. Not realizing that these games couldn't really achieve a stable 60. And on top of that, look, a lot of them are racers. Burnout, racers, look. Funny thing is about Def Jam Fight for New York, that's actually wrong. That game runs at 30 FPS on PS2 and 60 FPS on original Xbox as well as GameCube. That I do know because I own all those versions. Look at this. Fighting games. Look at this. Low demanding titles. Yep. This is what we're talking about, man. And you know what the funny thing is? The PlayStation 2 had more 60 FPS games than the PlayStation 5. Now that's pretty embarrassing. Can we talk about that fact? Can we talk about the fact that PS2 had way better 60 FPS games than what you're getting with the PlayStation 5? But like I said, I'm not going to go that far because I understand that a lot of these games had frame rate issues, okay? So I don't understand as to why you guys are using this as a point, man. Matter of fact, we're going to have Steven Seagal on this, and let's see what he has to say about this.
Can I laugh in your face? Really?
Thank you, Steven. Can we just laugh in you PlayStation fanboys' faces, man? I mean, you guys are embarrassing yourself, man. Just take an L and go home. The only time PS5 is hitting 60 FPS is on either Unreal Engine 4 in performance mode. Matter of fact, shout out to Metal Gear Solid 2 for doing it legitimately on next generation hardware, man. That's a perfect example. Time Splitters, like I said, these are great games, man. You know what I'm saying? But for you people to say that 60 FPS has always been the standard of gaming is embarrassing. And that just goes as far to show you that these people didn't grow up playing these games, man. Y'all didn't. Not everything you can learn from the internet. I bet y'all didn't even know Resident Evil 2 was also planned for the Sega Saturn. Some of these things you just can't go out and search. You had to be around the time and actually play games with the real gamers. But no, look at it. 98% of the time, those 60 FPS games had issues. And we out here talking about how the PlayStation 2 now has 60 FPS games because you guys want to keep capping about this whole Hellblade 2 with 30 frames per second. Like, come on, man. You PlayStation fanboys got to do better, man. Y'all got to do better, bro. And the funny thing is, matter of fact, don't you always hear me talk about this game? Oh, how come y'all didn't play it? Oh, there you go. It's nice to see Extermination. I bet y'all haven't noticed that I've been referencing that game a lot. And it has a lot of reason to do that. Because a lot of you people didn't play it. Okay? So y'all got to stop the cap. Where's Jack 2? Where's Jack 3? I guess those games ain't 60 FPS, but the first one was. Because these are low demanding titles. Klonoa. PlayStation 3 kind of did the same thing early on, and then they went back to doing games at 30 because the games was more demanding. A lot of these games had frame rate issues, bro. I don't know what to tell you. Some of these are actually fighting games. So for you guys to say that the PS2 was the only platform that really, pushed the boundaries of 60 frames per second, you are lying to yourself. The console was capped at 30, no different than the PS3 and no different than the PlayStation 4, bro. Please stop using these low demanding games, okay? There's maybe a few games here that can get a pass, like Metal Gear Solid 2 and Devil May Cry, but clearly when the graphics was getting better with 2 and 3, that they had to cap the game at 30, okay? For real. Have you guys seen Shadow Colossus on the PS2? The game, man, is, to a lot of people, virtually unplayable now because the game is just all over the place. So for you guys to use this as an argument to try to bash Microsoft in any sort of way to say that your games are capped at 30, your games would be capped at 30 if Final Fantasy VII Rebirth used Unreal Engine 5 in comparison to 4. Your games would be capped at 30 if Sony would stop making remasters and remakes and low demanding games on old, outdated gaming engines. That's just the way it be. And as much as you people want to keep capping, the funny thing is the GameCube had quite a few 60 frames per second, and I didn't hear none of you ponies talk about how good the GameCube was. If anything, you hated it because it was too kiddie. It was too kiddie. What about the original Xbox? The original Xbox has quite a few, on top of having a way better frame rate in most of their games, as well as having a better resolution. Y'all don't want to bring up. PS2 is also, let's also remember, guys, one of the least graphical consoles that you could buy in some situations, because it's more complicated than that. You see? I'm going to explain to you why it's more complicated than that, MBG. Because back then, Dead to Rights runs better on the PS2 than it does on GameCube. But you're like, GameStar, that doesn't make sense. You just said that the GameCube was... Because it depended on the situation. You get what I'm saying? True Crime Streets of New York runs horribly on the GameCube, but it runs better on the PS2, even though the GameCube is more powerful. So it's more complicated than that. You feel me? Even though the GameCube is more powerful on paper, there's sometimes situations where the PS2, their versions look better. Now, in comparison to the original Xbox, that's very unlikely, but still very possible, okay? Like I said, man, shout out to all the great consoles of the GameCube, PS2, as well as the original Xbox, man. You know, the golden age of video gaming. But I just find it so funny that you people really using this as an argument, acting like I own all these games here. How are you going to use an argument when I own these games? And I'm telling you now that a lot of these games don't achieve a solid 60. Matter of fact, go ahead, bring up this one. And I know about this one. God of War 2 60. That game dips pretty heavily. You do understand that once you're getting in combat and you're hitting enemies, it kind of dips. It's still a very good game, though, for the PS2, and it still maintains the frame rate quite evenly. But to use that as an argument to say that, oh, this is why it's because of Microsoft is the reason as to why they capping games at 30 is absolutely asinine to me, man. You guys better go check yourself at the front door, because as you guys can clearly see, 98% of the time they had issues. So 98. So what are we arguing here, man? The PS2 was a 30 frames per second console, and that's what it is. I don't care how many examples you got, because you don't have any valid ones. AT, which is a Sony exclusive, racing game, Burnout, racing game, Champion, that's not a demanding game, Chaos Legions, these are not demanding titles. Extermination was good, but it wasn't demanding. Look at that. Look at this. Nano Breaker is also a great game, too. Oh, there's a lot of great games on here. Look at this. So I guess y'all weren't playing games back then. Because, I mean, look, this is probably, about 40, 50 games here? So I guess y'all weren't playing any games back then because they weren't capped at 60. This is what I'm trying to tell you, man. These PC gamers have messed up these console fanboys' minds so messed up that you people can't just sit back and enjoy a video game anymore. It's actually quite sad, bro. And this is why I'm bringing this up in the video, because it's sad to see where the gaming community has become. It's all about frames, but it's not about the good quality of games. And the funny thing is, I guarantee, look at this list of games here, folks. I guarantee the PlayStation 5 won't even have this many good games. Can we all agree? Look how many good games are here. Look. The PlayStation 5 would never even achieve this. And that's crazy to think about. That's really crazy to think that there's way more games here than what you're ever going to get with the PS5. Right there, another testament to the golden age of video gaming. Like, look how limited this list is in regards to this whole 60 FPS argument you guys want to bring up. And look at how many games that we got and how many games that you guys get now. It's embarrassing, bro. I'm sorry, man. As much as y'all want to keep damage controlling for PlayStation or whatever have you, these consoles suck. And I had to bring it up because you people keep talking about it as if I have every single one of these games here. Every single one. And I can tell you, that's why when I caught Def Jam Fight for New York, I was like, yo, that game is not 60 FPS on PS2. It's 30 frames per second. It's 60 on the GameCube, and it's 60 on the original Xbox. So the original Xbox has the best version of that game. But, like, this is how I would rate it. Original Xbox, PS2, and then GameCube. But you just said the GameCube has 60 FPS. Bro, the graphics is horrible. There's lack of music, right? I think the stage is all the same. There's lack of music in the game. I'm sorry, I would rather play the game at 30 FPS. It's more funner. Matter of fact, when they do the Def Jam fight for New York, they play the 30 FPS version on PC, the PS2 inferior version. They don't even play the original Xbox version, even though that one's better, right? So, like I said, man, it doesn't matter, bro. Just go out there and play games, man. This whole 60 FPS nonsense that y'all got going on, man, is getting out of hand to the point where you guys think you know about retro gaming, and you don't. You don't. Because there's a lot of times where the GameCube blew the PS2 games out of the water, and then there was times I think I had a lot to do with space and storage, right? Due to the small disc that Nintendo used, probably explains as to why Sony was able to have some better looking games than GameCube. But other than that, GameCube was more powerful. It was the original Xbox, GameCube, and then the PS2 was dead last, man. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, man. It didn't stop my enjoyment with the PS2, knowing that they had almost 99% of their games was capped at 30. But according to these PlayStation fanboys, the PlayStation 2, all their games were at 60. Y'all are just lying to yourself. Be delusional all you want, but real recognize real. Take care.